Hello, my name's Brooke Trotter. I'm here with Rod Maxwell, Vanessa Robinson, and Kavita Bassi, and this is a podcast we've started called Life with No Filter. It's a podcast about brain injury. We've all got something in common. We've all got a brain injury, different types. Myself from a traumatic brain injury, Rod and Vanessa from a cavernoma, and Kavita a brain hemorrhage. All different types of brain injury, but we all have a lot of um, similarities in common. Um, I it came about when we all used to go to Altrincham Market. We used to chat about stuff because basically brain injury can be really it can be really isolating, and it's often good to find other people. You can think you can be sat at home, you can be thinking you're the only person that's going through these things, and it was good that we used to meet up and we used to discuss things brain injury related, and it was good that we thought one day we should put this out there. We should record these conversations, and this is basically what we're doing now. And these conversations in Altrincham Market all that time ago. Um, this episode is about acceptance, accepting you have a brain injury, and moving on. It was for me in terms of acceptance. I don't think any acceptance came until 3 years after my accident. Um, I was I'd read something early on. I was told something. Vanessa just mentioned to me that she got told it was 2 years. Um, 2 years after your accident is like all you heal up until 2 years, and then that's all you've got. That's what you're left with basically. And I'd read. I think I had heard that initially 2 years, but I'd heard also that you don't make any improvements after 3 years, and I suppose in desperation you grab onto whatever you can. So I had that. I was just homed in on this 3 year time limit, and up until then I was just looking for an answer, and I was just I was just insistent that I was going to wake up, or just forever hopeful that one day I was going to wake up and that all these fatigue, this confusion, these memory problems, they would just be gone. And perhaps bizarrely and facetiously, I was I was holding on to that hope right up until the 14th of May, 2010, which was 3 years to the day after my accident. I somehow thought that it would just, I would wake up and it would be gone. When it wasn't, I got hit with really bad depression. Well, I don't know whether it is depression, but I was certainly very, very low in mood. And that's when I I started running. I started doing stuff for myself. I wasn't just waiting for myself to get better. That was when I started doing something about it, and I I started running. I found fitness again, and I it was eventually 2013. I always wanted to move back to Manchester. I moved back to Manchester on my own, and one of the great things there was, I suppose, when I moved back. Like I had all these. You look back with rose-tinted glasses, don't you? And I was looking at, I was looking back, which when I was in Manchester previously, I was at uni and I had a right laugh, and I was just looking forward to that, looking back to that, and you expect to pick up that life, and the reality hits you that nobody lives there anymore. Everybody's moved away and getting on with their careers around the country, and I was. You have a lot of time to fill. And one of the things I found was a charity called BASIC, the Brain and Spinal Injury Centre, which is just round the corner from Salford Royal, or back then, as I knew it, Hope Hospital. That's what it used to be called. And it was really helpful to me. I was started working in the gym as a just volunteering really, helping out in the gym, taking people on the treadmill and stuff. And I had a lot of help there, a lot of, particularly from a guy called Phil Johnson, who I can't remember what his job role was, but he was he helped.
He used to help with legal stuff, didn't he?
Yeah, he helped with legal stuff, but
and getting people into jobs and
he helped. Yeah, he helped. Well, basically helped me move in. He helped me with public speaking. If it wasn't for Phil, I wouldn't have gone on to do any public speaking. He helped me do that, and he was also Mary Todd. There was a lady called Mary Todd who used to do the memory workshop on a Wednesday afternoon, and that's initially where I met Vanessa. And I remember the first time I went in there, it was really quite depressing the first time I went in there, because I just thought, you go in and there's all these people, like, they're all shouting out and being really rude, and there's no filter, but I thought, oh my God, am I one of these people now? But what I didn't actually realize, you don't realize, dear, is they were doing exactly the same thing that I did. And I suppose once I found that, once you found other people, another lady worked there called Tara as well. She was really helpful in that she'd fallen down the stairs, I think, and when she went to get her son in the middle of the night. And it was I suppose she was an inspiration to me. She'd done a thing called at the basic annual convention, or whatever you want to call it, and she'd done a speech in front of like 300 people, and I remember thinking, how could I would love to do that one day. And they built up my confidence, and I actually did that a couple of years later at the it was at the Old Trafford Rugby Club, and it was really good boost in my really good boost in the self-esteem. And I'm not going off topic here, we're talking about acceptance, aren't we? But I think at first I didn't accept it until 3 years later, and then as I moved to Manchester, as I moved to start talking to different people who've had brain injuries, and you find out that life's not over, and you can move on. There's things you can do. I don't think in terms of acceptance, I don't know if this is just human failing or if this is just a brain injury thing, but I still think I can do a lot more than I can. I mean, I can wake up with I'll have 10 things on my to-do list, and I'll maybe do one of them. But I have come to accept now that one is a good thing. And it's like, at first I used to set my sights really high, and I used to think I could do everything. And when I couldn't do those things, I used to get really depressed and I used to get really down. But I've come to recognise, I suppose that's a part of acceptance, that you might not achieve the full 10, but even 1 or 2 things is that's definitely a positive. Does anybody else feel the same?
I wonder if, before the acceptance stage, there is almost like a grieving stage or a depression stage that you almost inevitably go through, because that's when you're starting to come to terms with the fact that something is different, and you're not in control of that, and it wasn't part of your life plan, etc. And I mean, I'm 4 years in now. It was 4 years in October last, so I'm 4 years in a quarter, if you like. And only in this last 3 weeks have I started to think about acceptance, because I've been speaking to other people, doing interviews with them, and actually I felt, the first thing I think I felt is that this is my community, and I felt a bit
very exclusive community as well.
Yeah, no, it is, you know, and the more you speak to people who've been through it, the more helpful it is. And I'm not talking about experts. I'm talking about people who have experienced brain injury. But I think I said in one of the other podcasts that only recently I did a cognitive assessment that was recommended to me by a neuropsychologist, and he performed it with me, and he mapped, essentially, we did some questions that mapped my brain function, and it's the and the results basically said, you know, in the moment, my ability to reason and logic, etc., is good, but my memory is really poor, and that's been a huge aid to my acceptance, because I was starting to think, well, I can do all these things in the moment. You know, I can do these podcasts, I can do broadcasts on the radio, and I forget, you forget about the memory stuff that you can't remember. Funny enough, quite handy. And I was starting to think, maybe I'm a fraud here. Maybe it's all in my mind. Maybe I'm more capable than I am. And, you know, and I definitely wasn't in any way accepting what had happened to me, I think.
Isn't that denial?
Well, and I reckon denial could be a stage before acceptance. You know, I think, and this is the thing that nobody has ever mapped out for me. And it's one of the things I was searching for, because in my prior career, you would have said to clients, there's stages leading up to things, you know, and it's like a journey. And, you know, I wasn't, nobody tells, I know everybody's journey is personal to them and to their backgrounds and everything else. But I think there's stages that you go through, and there's a grieving stage, there might be a denial stage, and there might be another stage before acceptance, you know?
There's the Kubler-Ross 5 stages of grief. And actually, if you think we're grieving for a former life, are identified as denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And they reckon that you have to go through each one of these stages, even if it's for a split second. So I don't think I've ever been angry, but maybe there was a 2-minute burst 7 years ago or something. But that's, so we are grieving for a previous life. So
just go through those again.
Right, denial. So it hasn't happened to us. So a bit like Brooke was saying, you know, you thought you could do everything. Anger. Well, I get frustrated with myself. So I suppose that's anger in itself. Bargaining. And I think that's probably more to do when you've lost someone. You sort of say, if I get better,
things will be better.
Yeah. And then depression, and then acceptance. There are a few others. There's another one which is like 7 stages, which includes reconstruction before acceptance. But interestingly, they call the last stage of acceptance also hope, which I think that's really positive. I'd rather go for, when did I start hoping for the future rather than accepting the future? It sounds more positive, doesn't it?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
So I have a really positive nature of my own. So I think for me, I found the journey probably a little bit different to everyone else. So I think it was about, I think 6 months into, after I came out of hospital, and I went to see a therapist at the Priory, and I used to go on a weekly basis. And it was him who actually made me think differently and made me think about sort of what's happened to me and to accept what's happened to me. Because I think there's a thing like accepting what's happened to you, and then also accepting that you're a little bit different as well. So he said something to me, and he said something like, a lot of people go through this, and what you've got to understand is that you're actually here that you're alive, that you know, that you can walk and you can do some of these things. And some people don't have that experience. So what you've got to do is sort of grasp the fact that you are actually here and that you can do certain things. And yes, you might be a little bit different. And he like explained it in so many words that really made me understand. But yeah, I went through a long time of grieving my old self, and I still do. I still have those moments, I think, like even today. And I was talking to someone the other day, and they said that they remembered that their father had a brain hemorrhage, and he would always play old songs of pre-hemorrhage because it took him back to that place of who he was. And I do that. I play like old songs or old things that sort of remind me of situations or times when I was the other person. So yeah, it's just that. But the thing is, I do actually feel like I'm going to be 6 years on this March. And I do feel that I accepted it quite early on. I don't know if it's because I was so busy. I actually embraced having that brain hemorrhage because I did my blog, I did my YouTube, I recorded myself every day. So I was indulged in it every single day from the beginning. So I don't know if that sort of helped, but I'm 6 years on, and I think probably, yeah, it was a good 2 years until I properly accepted what had happened to me and, you know, had that bit of hope. I love that thing that you said, Vanessa, about hope.
I think it's a really good way of doing of positively putting it, because I think if you get through what each of us get through, both the physical stage and also the psychological behavioral stage, then there is a lot of hope, actually. And I think this is when I'm in a good mood. I think that this has possibly given me a unique insight to life more than anything else.
There aren't many people who get a second stab at it, are there?
No, really,
and we're
not.
Very fortunate for that, but you know.
But it's you have to go through that grieving and that anger and all that, and sometimes that spoils it, you know. But you certainly find out, I think, in some ways, what type of person you are, really, and in some ways also it allows you. This is the bit I sometimes struggle with, but I feel lucky that I've had a chance to look at my life and keep the good stuff. I've had to shed some stuff that was good, but keep hold of some good stuff and get a second chance to do something. And
I certainly do, like reevaluate what's important. And it certainly does that when you're lying in a hospital bed with tubes coming out of it, doesn't it?
Well, and I don't mean to sound corny with that, because I know it probably sounds very, I don't know, overly simplistic and optimistic, but
cliched as well, isn't it? That people tell you, "Oh, you're so lucky," and it's I always, I know. Obviously, I know I was lucky, but I certainly didn't really feel lucky. It's
no,
you're not lucky. It's like I was walking home. I was walking home from a night out. I mean, lucky would have been to find 20 quid on the floor and not get run over by
win the lottery.
Well, I think my experience, I think I accepted what had happened to me very early on. So it's 8 years next week when I was first ill, and after about 4 months, I started keeping a diary, and somebody had said it might work, and I thought, oh no, but actually I wrote 40,000 words of just nonsense. It was just all this pouring out of, and actually I haven't wanted to go back and read it properly yet. But I had my final operation to remove my cavernoma in July, which was 5 months after I was initially ill. And so my diary entries up until that were, you know, talking about things. And then after my operation, I just wrote in bold, I accept, I accept, I accept. So it was almost like, but then, but I don't think but I was still then, I wanted to go back to work, and I was focusing on my old life of returning to work. And it seemed to me that 3 months was always enough in the future that things could happen. So I kept saying, you know, it's going to be 3 months. Yes, Brooke?
Something that confused me in terms of accepting was, well, I suppose you look for the positive things, don't you? Like one thing I couldn't get my head around was, you know, I read that I'd been told that you'd have these memory problems and stuff like that, but I could still remember, like, I don't know, like before the days of mobile phones, you used to know all your friends' telephone numbers, and I could still remember them from a kid. I still can, and I still remember, like, I had a thing like F878 DVF. That was our first, or one of our early family car number plates, and I was just like constantly in this turmoil. I was like, you know, is there something wrong with me? You know,
I felt like it was cheating that I had a memory problem. The thing is, with a memory problem, though, you can't remember what you can't remember.
No, you can't.
So people will say, "Oh, you've got a memory problem." Oh, yes, I have too. And you think, well, and then you feel guilty because you think, "Are you lying? Actually, are you just not trying to remember?"
I say it's like the short-term memory. So it's from when you've had your incident, usually, or even a couple of weeks or a few weeks beforehand, and then to a certain point, like, well, even for now, but you still remember those long-term memories. Because I did like a session where they explained all of this, and they said that you will still remember some of the old memories, but it's the short-term memory loss that
that's it. I can remember the lineup for Live Aid 1985. I think it was 13th of July, and I probably could give you it in order, right? But I couldn't tell you what I did at the weekend very clearly and whatever. And I you know, I am terrible with names, and then I get a mental block on some people. And I've found there's some people whose names I can recall like that, and they're people I only just met. But I think that's also part of this journey, this discovery that it's almost like you're roaming around in your head, working out what's working, what's not working, you know, and that's when I think only after you start to accept that can you put into place some techniques or ways of handling it, really.
And I think as well, you know, part of that acceptance thing, you know, when people say that you are disabled, I think that also, with the notion of being accepted, I think is sometimes a little bit blurred, and I think that sometimes stops you from accepting, you know, who you are now as well, you know, because that label, sometimes you don't feel like that, but you are, because it's a hidden disability, isn't it?
I have a problem with that word massively.
Me too.
Yeah.
You come to look at disability as being like a physical disability, like mobility issues, and like there was this thing I did like volunteering. It was Huddersfield University, and it was to help the students there, and they were going on to different careers, you know, in NHS and stuff like that. And I was they were basically interviewing different people with different disabilities, and like, you know, you walked in there and there was like people who were like paraplegic and quadriplegic and stuff, and you know, some of what I would consider real sort of serious disabilities. And like, I went in there and I just run a marathon the week before, and I was fitter than most of the students in there. And I thought, you know, how am I disabled? And but I think the thing to get over that is, you know, our ability to do things, you know, regarding memory and stuff like that, it's been damaged, doesn't it? And that's all it means.
Do you not think it's really interesting that almost each of us have had a different neurological condition, if you like, but in some ways, what is common is how you recover. You can have a different impact, but actually, somehow the journey after it can be somewhat similar, if that makes sense. I just wish somebody. I wish I 3 years ago even I'd seen a discussion like this that might have helped me signpost, and give me a timeline for what might be happening. Because I don't think anybody ever sat down and said, you know what, you're going to go through some stages, and it's going to get a bit ugly at times, and you won't recognize yourself at times, but you're going to have to go through it. And I just wasn't ready for that at all.
But do you think you would have been ready then?
I may not have accepted it, but it would have been good to have it at the back of my mind if I would have remembered it.
Journey, I think.
Or just a diagram that sort of says, look, here are. I mean, what you just read out earlier, Vanessa. First time I'd heard of that, and that's really quite useful. And also, I think it helps your family, because my family have seen some very irrational, very immature behaviors from me, and of which a lot of that I'm really quite ashamed of. And at times I've sort of thought maybe I just blame it on brain injury and I get away with it, but it actually, if I had a map like what you read out, I could at least then go, okay, right, well, maybe that's where I am. That's and I was never one for wanting maps, and I'm considering my job was management consultant, used to do projects. I wasn't very disciplined around plans, but really over the last 4 years, I probably missed a bit of the plan, and what I've missed more is not knowing where I was. And it's starting to click with me in the last 3 to 4 weeks where I might be in the cycle of this thing. And it took somebody who was 8 to 10 years post turning around and telling me the other day, you're merely a baby in all of this. And I thought, you know what, that came free advice, and it's probably the best advice I've had in a long time.
But you were open to receiving that. I remember fairly early on people saying to me, oh, it's early days, and it used to drive me insane.
The worst, that wasn't it, early days.
But you didn't want to hear that. Well, you've just heard a similar sentiment, Rod, and you're accepting it and saying that's really good. But you do have to be open to it. But also, I think if someone had said, I don't think I would have believed, or I wouldn't have wanted to believe that, right, in 8 years' time, you're still going to be like this. I maybe would have given up. We've got the hope.
But maybe because you're the subject of it, it's not really for you to get the benefit, but it might be for benefit of those who are around you, so that they get some idea. I don't know, but it has somewhat calmed me down. Not that I was in an erratic state, but I sort of.
Well, if it works for you, then isn't that brilliant that speaking to somebody has brought that on?
Well,
I also think that our family and friends have to accept as well.
Yeah, I was totally gonna say that as well. I completely agree with you, Vanessa. Like that acceptance side is not just for the individual, it's for everyone around you. Like, they've got to understand it.
But do you think they can accept if you don't? Because in some ways they might do, but if you're not, it doesn't help people.
I think to move forward, all parties have to accept, but it might go at different. I think my family accepted before I did.
Yeah.
And I think, but you need that support, don't you? So if they don't accept that you have say a problem with memory, they're going to get really cross with you because they have to tell you things over and over and again. And I'm not saying that it doesn't test their patience, but they can go away and go, yeah, mom does have a problem. She's not just ignoring me. Or
people are going to get frustrated, whatever, out there at some point.
yes, yeah.
I've been really lucky in that sense. My family been really good, because I guess if you're talking about journey, which I don't like talking about that, but if you, they've been with me right from the start, so we've kind of learned everything together. And when we've been told stuff, they've obviously been totally sober, and I've been, I've had like concentration problems, so they've been able to tell me certain stuff.
I feel like I've been that annoying kid in a car when you're going on a journey on holiday.
Yeah.
And I'm not exactly. Well, I'm not even saying that, but I'm just, I'm just not. I haven't been particularly conscious of my surroundings, and I've just been very annoying, basically.
But I just wanted to say as well, when you were saying before about like family accepting, so I completely see my immediate family completely accepted it as well before I did. But what I didn't see was some of my friends accepting it, because like I used to see them and they used to say to me, "You're okay now, aren't you? Like, you're okay now," like as if my leg has been fixed or my arm has been fixed. And I'm just like, I just can't be bothered to explain that, yeah, I am, but I do have these like side effects. So it's that acceptance. I think only the really close people around you would understand and accept. But I just feel when I see some of my friends, and they say to me like, "Oh, but you're fine now, aren't you?" Like, I don't understand that.
Well, I've given up on that. I just count to 10 or whatever and think, well, you're not there to. You don't have to explain to everyone. But yes, certainly my family, and I would say most of my friends, there are a few, but I'm happy with that.
Well, this has been a very timely discussion, because for me, it's almost slap bang in the middle of me starting to accept. So I feel like I can, and I'm sure I've still got some way to go. I wouldn't want to say that I'm fully healed, and but in the acceptance stage, but it's starting to make some sense to me now, which I feel actually a little bit calmer about it. It's and it really took somebody who was 5 years further down the line and to tell me and basically say, "You're merely a baby in this," and I thought, and in the best Cumbrian accent ever, and I thought, you know what, you're right, and it made sense. And I actually think these podcasts and talking to you guys has helped with that. But Vanessa, we need to go just mention what that model that you were talking about was, that talked about the hope. I think I like that term best, actually.
Oh, totally. And when people sort of get past that acceptance stage, don't you just feel so much happier, and like that you can embrace who you are? And because before that, you do go through a lot of stages and a lot of troubles and everything. But I just think it's just so wonderful when you get to that stage, and when you sort of, so, just to give people something positive to look forward to, when you get to that stage, it is lovely. It is really, really lovely that you can embrace who you are, and you can just be a bit happier.
And I don't know, you feel lighter, don't you? As if the weight of the world has been taken off your shoulders, and it's okay to be tired. It's okay to forget things. And I think once you've accepted that you've got these flaws in your personality, or whatever you want to call them, then you can start putting in strategies to help you with those. So while you're in denial that you've got a few problems, you're not doing anything to help yourself, you're fighting against it. But once you actually say, right, bring it on, this is how I am now, it's just it's a relief.
You have to hit rock bottom first. If I know anything from my several months of watching the Jeremy Kyle show every morning, you have to hit rock bottom before you can bounce back. And that's a good thing.
There you go. Well, in the words of Jeremy Kyle, I think we'll make that a wrap, shall we? All right. Well,
okay.
Good to see you all.
Yeah.
Do.
We accept.
Yeah, we're hopeful. We're full of hope.
I like the hope.
Right.
Right. With hope we march on. Same time next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Stay safe. Bye bye.
Yeah.